Donald Trump today announced that Ohio Senator J.D. Vance is his choice for vice president. The selection of Vance as a running mate was a surprise to some, considering Vance was once a strong and vocal critic of the former president. For analysis on Trump's selection, we welcome Chuck Coughlin, president and CEO at High Ground. Chuck, always a pleasure. Good to have you here. Thoughts on J.D. Vance? Were you surprised at all?
Well, I thought, jokingly, with all this unity conversation, I'm like, well, here's a great opportunity to pick Nikki Haley. That would have been sort of revolutionary. But he went in this direction. I think this was where he was set because, Vance really puts a credible voice on a lot of those Trumpian policies of the underserved in America. The people are left behind by the economic revolution that has encapsulated America. And that is where his birthplace was. His success is a remarkable story. And he's 39, he's a young man, and can provide a lot of vigor, and he's a veteran.
And he literally wrote the book on those who felt left behind.
He did.
And helped get Donald Trump elected in the first. 39, ex-Marine, but he was a former Trump critic. And Chuck, he wasn't just a critic. I mean, you're comparing him to Hitler, noxious, a cultural, what did he call him, a cultural heroine? I mean, but it all changed when he ran for U.S. Senate. That's got to be tough to square.
It was, and he has, and the way he's looked at it is he said, look, I've gotten to know the guy. I feel I can place myself within his tribe and be a voice of economic reason for the rest of the country. And I think that's his calculus. Yale graduate, super smart. I think, when Trump talks about tariffs, I think everybody starts to shake. I mean, Vance is going to talk about tariffs in a way that may be able to be seen as somewhat productive with some parts of the American economy. I'm curious to hear that, but he definitely puts an intellectual underpinning under what has been, a lot of baiting by the Trump campaign.
He also brings Ohio, which I think would have been Trump anyway, but Western Pennsylvania. He brings the Rust Belt, does he not?
Yeah, those key states that Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. He's a Midwesterner by upbringing. He's got that Midwestern thing going for him. So yeah, that's a good pick.
But is it enough because Democrats are already saying he's lockstep with MAGA since day one, which I don't think is accurate because he was against MAGA from day one. How do Democrats go against someone like this?
I think there's a lot of room there. I think we're going to hear all of those quotes. And that will give Vance an opportunity to articulate why he is where he is. And I think that's going to be a really interesting thing to listen to because I don't think a lot of us, there's a lot of journalists that have done long-form journalism with him and tried to discern that. I've read a lot of those pieces. And a lot of it is, he's 39. He's still figuring this out.
Yeah.
I think there's still a lot of pieces there to be figured out. And now you're the bug under the microscope now. It's playtime. And so we're going to have to figure out if he can articulate those positions.
And he's 39 as the running mate and the vice president, the possible vice president to a possible president who will be advancing in age and advancing in years. There's that. There's also the 2028 presidential election. I got to believe Nikki Haley and who have Marco Rubio and these folks, it's not a great day for them.
No, it's not because he's this generationally skipped, right?
Yes.
We've gone down the road here a bit. And it'll be also interesting to see how he digests the end of Pence. I think he's got to look at Pence as somebody of great character. He may be out of tune with Pence on some of these economic policies, but he can't be completely in tune. This whole election denialism thing, I haven't really heard him talk a lot about that. And so it'll be interesting to see how he navigates that narrative that Trump has established as being angry. And we see a lot of anger within the American electorate today about, being left behind and being cheated by the elites.
I was going to say, I did see something along the lines where he said that he would accept the results if it was proven that they were accurate, fair and accurate and that sort of thing, and that alternate electors should be allowed for each state in case. I mean, he's tiptoeing down that road. But is that enough for the true believers in the Republican Party? Is he angry enough?
I think that's going to be a thing. And we're going to see this week, right? Now we have Trump starting a convention in Milwaukee, and he's going to talk about unity. And he's going to talk about bringing the country together. I mean, we all chuckle at that, but there's a wide latitude of opportunity there for him to do that. You know, what does he do about the dehumanizing narrative on all the immigration population, their enemies, what does he do with all that? Or does he assume more of a mantle here and allow Vance and him to carry on a more thoughtful agenda? I think it's going to be fascinating to watch.
And I think it's interesting as well that someone who was so against Donald Trump and yet saw the light, changed his ways. Trump loves that kind of stuff.
He does. He loves people that express loyalty to him at the end of the day. You know, I jokingly, the Nikki Haley thing was, oh, we could pick Nikki Haley on a unity convention now because now she's got an invitation to be there. Didn't do that because she was criticizing him very recently. JD stuff you got about a 2-year healing period apparently on all of the criticism that you can level.
What do you make of down ballot races with these two at the top of the Republican ticket?
I think the whole presidential election is in a world of its own orbit. It is a whirlwind of things right now. I think it leaves a lot of space for down ballot candidates to narrate their own campaign. I do believe that Trump has probably experienced a surge in support over the last several days as a result of the terrible incidents in Pennsylvania. But I'm also curious to see if those are coattails. My instinct is there's not coattails there. My instinct is that the American electorate is going to be discerning about, okay, I'll go with this, but I'm going to balance it with this. And I'm curious to see how that turns out.
All right. I won't even ask you what the Democrats should do regarding the top of their ticket because those questions would take a whole lot more
Next
time.
week.
We'll see you then. Chuck, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for the opportunity.